One of the most subtle ways you can have an edge over your league mates in fantasy football this year is by nailing your picks in the middle rounds of your fantasy draft. Can you find discounted veterans? Can you find players like Chuba Hubbard last year? So today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to give you 6 players that you should be targeting in the middle rounds of your fantasy drafts. And Ty, one of the players that you could find in the middle rounds of your drafts last year was Alad McConkey, who finished as the wide receiver 12. A rookie like Brian Thomas Jr. obviously had a phenomenal season, also going in the middle rounds of fantasy drafts last year. Matthew Golden, another rookie going in the middle rounds of fantasy drafts. Tell us why you think he's a steal.
Because he's wearing the number 22. That is really the only reason why, is because he's the only one to do it. Just kidding.
Running back number?
Yeah, it was a running back number, a DB number, you could say. I'm going off of what we're learning from mini camps and where I'm expecting to happen in training camp. And that Matthew Golden is going to be in the 2 wide receiver sets, which is big time, right? You look at who is on this team with Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks. Matthew Golden is figuring to be a starter right out of the gate. And again, that's big time. That shows confidence in the first rounder among those guys who have been there much longer than he has. And I think his fit with this team is great. He's going to be the other outside receiver opposite Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs is going to be the X who's going to be on the line, but you get Matthew Golden, who will be used in the pre-snap motions, but he also has the verticality and the speed that Romeo Doubs doesn't have. So yes, we get the possibility of easy targets because of being in motion, but then we also get big play potential as well. And I can't help but feel like this is what the team has been wanting with Christian Watson. And Christian Watson just never developed, never stayed healthy enough, whatever the reason may be. But now that they have it with Matthew Golden, I think that they're going to take full advantage of it. He's an underrated route runner, and he can very quickly find himself atop the pecking order here, even though a lot of people like to go with Jaden Reed when it comes to Packers receivers. I'm going to kind of take the bet with Matthew Golden here.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to point out is you have his projection down on the screen there. If you're an audio listener, wide receiver 41. You can find that all in our 2025 draft guide, which is out, by the way. But we're also saying, like, it's not that we're like so far ahead consensus on these players, but when you're looking for upside in these middle rounds, like, these are the guys you should be looking for, right? I love what you mentioned about his fit into this offense. I brought it up when Cameron and I talked about breakout wide receiver ones. I brought up the possibility of Matthew Golden just like lucking into the right offense and going late enough in drafts where he's kind of being, I don't want to say overlooked, but with how much LaFleur wants to use these big crossing routes, these big shots downfield, set it up with a little bit of Josh Jacobs play action. Let's hit a Matthew Golden on a big dig route across the middle. Yeah, absolutely. Matthew Golden is one of those guys in the middle rounds here where, you look at Ricky Pearsall, already dealing with soft tissue injury. Jaden Reed is slot. He can't get on the field for more than 60% of snaps, it seems like. Khalil Shakir, sure, maybe the focal point of Buffalo, nothing too explosive. And then everybody has their different opinion on Stephon Diggs. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm good taking a shot on Matthew Golden here.
Yeah, and I'll just wrap it up with this. He is arguably the most explosive player outside of Jaden Reed on this offense. So even when it is just him and Romeo Doubs, yes, we like ourselves some Tucker Kraft. Some of us a little bit more than the others.
Some of us out here are way in on Tucker Kraft without knowing it.
Just a little bit. But again, I think Matthew Golden is easily one of the most dynamic players with his speed and, again, the verticality. So I love the pairing of easy targets and big plays. Not to say that he's going to be the focal point of the passing attack, but again, if he can find himself atop the pecking order, that's better than what Ricky Pearsall can get. I mean, he's going to be battling with Juwan Jennings and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle, and you just name the receivers that go ahead of even Ricky Pearsall, right? We got Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, talking about Deebo Samuel. If Terry McLaurin comes back to camp, and I know we just talked about Terry, and some of you guys just don't agree that this holdout is actually a for real thing, but you get my point, is that Matthew Golden very easily has a path to being one of the best values out of these range of receivers.
Creating explosives, that's one of the easiest ways to stay on the football field in the NFL. Before we go any further, I found it interesting that 88% of you who have watched our videos over the last month here on YouTube aren't actually subscribed to the channel yet.
What?
So let's take a moment to change that quick. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell as well, so you know when all of our newest content is up. Just like you all, I'm looking to beat Ty in fantasy football this year. I'm looking to beat Cameron as well. We know you want to beat your friends as well, right? So along with all the fun insights that we hope to bring you, we hope to remind you of the fun and camaraderie that comes with fantasy football as well. I'm going to go back up the board a little bit, Ty. I got to get this off my chest because I just don't understand why people want to keep drafting scared when it comes to James Conner. Like, I'll keep scooping him up at a discount if that's going to be the case. Drafted as a running back 19 last year, finished as a running back 10. Drafted as a running back 23 in 2023, finished as the running back 18. Drafted, as a running back 27 in 2021, finished as the running back 5. Like, those are all not points per game finishes. Those are overall finishes. The only year he hasn't returned on value since joining the Cardinals was in 2022, where he was drafted as a running back 16 and finished as the running back 20. Boo-hoo. Yet he was still a top 10 running back in fantasy points per game that year. So let's take that actually one step further. In 3 of his 4 years with the Arizona Cardinals, he's finished as a top 10 running back in fantasy points per game. The only year he didn't, he was the running back 14 in fantasy points per game. A top 15 running back on a points per game basis every year he spent with the Cardinals, yet running back 22 this year. Like, I'm ready for all the comments saying, oh, the best ability is availability. But like, this is now a 4-year trend where he's finished ahead of his ADP. Like, ball talk aside, I just don't understand what we're doing here.
James Conner is really good at football. And I don't think people know that, or if they do,
better than people want to give him credit for. That's
exactly.
For sure.
That's exactly it. And I think the ultimate reason is they are worried by the injury bug. And there is a more flattering way to say this, but if you're scared of injuries, then you need to be scared of every player in fantasy football. Yes, some players find themselves on the injury list more often than others. I think it's very subjective to say that a player is injury prone. James Conner, despite missing 3 to 4 games a year, never playing a fully healthy year, the dude is right around 200 total fantasy points a year on average. Like, he's right there every year. And we continue to discount it because injuries, or we don't want the big injury, even though we've talked about also running backs tend to miss 1 to 2 to 3 games a year. That's just how running backs.
That should be the normal for running backs. Yes. They're playing human bumper cars out there. Like, and I'll go one step further. They're playing human demolition derby out there. Mm-hmm. I mean, the expectation is that running backs are probably going to miss 1 to 3 games every single year. It feels like we're giving James Conner the discount that people criticize everyone else for discounting Derrick Henry. Oh, he's been doing it as a top 5 back. Who cares? Who cares how old he is? How many touches he has? Right? And it's just, people are just like, well, James Conner, he gets injured. Yeah, but he gives you numbers. Like, at some point, I need this on a t-shirt. I just like fantasy points, personally. And if I know a guy who's going to give me fantasy points, it's James Conner in this Drew Petzing offense. That's what's been proven to me time after time after time again.
I just think that ADP, there is a world, if you have a certain pick and you go for a certain build, you can get James Conner as your running back 3. Because if you miss out on the top 4 quarterbacks, you're then punting on the quarterbacks that don't start with like Patrick Mahomes on Underdog currently goes at the beginning of the 8th round. So you don't need to force the quarterback pick until 2 rounds after where James Conner goes. So you can spend the pick on James Conner as your 3rd running back. If that's the insurance that you need, that you don't need to rely on James Conner week in, week out, I think we would very much rely on James Conner week to week, understanding the injuries that come with it. But if you need that kind of insurance that, yeah, I don't need him to be a top 2 running back on my team every single week, you can get him as a running back 3. That's like the perfect bow on top of it for me when it comes to James Conner.
Well, and shoot, let's extend that to redraft leagues. Patrick Mahomes isn't going into 8th round of your redraft leagues, but there's enough late round quarterbacks that I actually like this year where I'm willing, if I don't get a Lamar, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, I'm good just waiting on a Dak Prescott, on another guy we'll talk about later in this episode instead, and just taking James Conner as a luxury at the running back position to be my running back 3 for me, where you don't have to start him if he misses a week. So I digress. James Conner, great target. Currently going at pick 64 over on Underdog right now. Fourth pick of the 5th round. Definitely a guy I am scooping up as much as I can. I've always been the James Conner truther around here. Ty, we'll move it back to you here now. We'll move down the board slightly further. Another wide receiver that you want to talk about, Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, going after Matthew Golden even. Darnell Mooney had a sneaky good season last year. And for whatever reason, it's just not getting talked about. And honestly, it's probably because the only 2 players that people want to talk about in Atlanta is Drake London and Bijan Robinson. Very understandable. But let's give Darnell Mooney his flowers here, okay? Top 36 in fantasy points per game in half PPR, in usage, in EPA per target, first downs per route run. And get this, he was even top 36 in first read share, even with Drake London. Like, Darnell Mooney is a big piece of this offense. And his 19.6% target share was better than Jordan Addison, was better than Jameson Williams, was better than Xavier Worthy. Guys that are going much earlier than he is. The ultimate difference is that Darnell Mooney only put up 5 touchdowns, and some of the other guys found the end zone 7, 8, 9, 10 times. So what my argument is that you're getting really good value because he's going later than where he finished last year. You're getting really good value on a guy that's not expected to lose much work, if at all. And he may push to be a wide receiver 3 or a flex play some weeks in your lineup. It's definitely not a sexy pick. No one's really going to go out there and say, like, I want myself some Darnell Mooney. But again, something has to be said for a guy that by most accounts can be in contention to be in your lineups most weeks.
So I think that's the question you need to ask yourself with Darnell Mooney is how much upside does Darnell Mooney actually have compared to, Matthew Golden, who we already talked about. How does he compare to Stephon Diggs as the potential wide receiver 1, in New England? How does he compare to Josh Downs going slightly before him? And Emeka Egbuka going after him as the wide receiver 3 in Tampa Bay? I think that's a question you need to ask yourself because I also don't think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're not sitting here and telling people Darnell Mooney is going to be a top 25 wide receiver this year, are you?
No.
Okay. And that's just like, hey, we're going to make sure we're very clear on that. But I think you bring up an interesting point of, if he finishes as the wide receiver 34, automatically he finishes 10 wide receivers ahead of ADP, and that's not all that unreasonable. Excuse me. The second question I think we need to ask is how much do you actually trust Michael Penix this year? How much better do you think he is than Kirk Cousins? And it's not an internal dissonance I have. I think Michael Penix will be just fine this year, but I wonder what the learning curve will be, even though you do have another year of Zach Robinson as your offensive coordinator as well, with Raheem paired with Raheem Morris. So I don't know if you want to speak to either of those. Those are like the 2 questions that I always sit with Darnell Mooney. I like him as a pick. I take him a lot on Underdog right now. I just I find it hard to not click either Matthew Golden or one of these other wide receivers who I'm going to talk about ahead of him.
Which is understandable. And I think the way that I've justified this is if there was that much concern over Michael Penix, people wouldn't be as bullish as they are on Drake London. Well, and I know that Drake London is a different player and arguably the more well-rounded and better player than Darnell Mooney. But people have zero gripes when it comes to Drake London. And the discussion of, well, what if Michael Penix literally falls flat on his face? That's going to impact Drake London as well. So I feel like one of 2 things has to be true here. Either you don't believe that Michael Penix is, I don't want to say isn't the guy, but if he struggles in year 1, then you need to not be as confident in Drake London than going inside the top 10. But if you do believe that Michael Penix can pretty much be relatively as productive and efficient as Kirk Cousins was, maybe even a little more, then you should be in on Darnell Mooney as well. Again, I'm not saying, like you said, I'm not saying that he's going to be a top 25 guy. But if he can push anywhere between 33, 36, even to 38, not only is that a guy that can fill in your lineup on certain weeks, when you hit bye weeks maybe, that's a value at the wide receiver 47. And can I just say too, the contingent value in Darnell Mooney, if something were to happen to Drake London,
Sure.
like Darnell Mooney is then the guy in this offense, or at least in the passing game.
No, that's Kyle Pitts. You forgot about Kyle Pitts.
Oh, my bad. Ray McLeod.
Yeah.
Gosh, shoot. What am I doing?
Kyle, how are you still on this show if you forget about Kyle Pitts? 2 full games with Michael Penix at the end of last year. I'll just end on this. 10.7 points, the wide receiver 29 on the week in week 16, 4.7 points, the wide receiver 67. 2 games is not enough of a sample size whatsoever, but feels like we're kind of shooting the middle of the barrel here by going wide receiver 47 with room for there to potentially finish inside of the top 35, even dare I say, top 30 wide receivers this year. Let's take a quick break. We'll hear from our friends over at Underdog and all the awesome contests they're putting on this summer for you. Today's show is brought to you by your friends over at Underdog, home of Best Ball Mania 6. There are $15 million in prizes up for grabs, with $2 million going to first place and another $1 million going to second place. Entering is super easy. You join a draft with 11 other people, select your team, and Underdog will automatically generate your highest scoring lineup each week. Essentially, you get all the fun of drafting with zero stress of making the wrong decision on who to start. Underdog hosts a variety of other contests as well, ranging from $3 entries to $500 entries, so there's something for everybody's pocketbook. If you're not on Underdog yet, use the code FELLAS when you sign up, because they'll give you up to $1,000 in bonus credits to play with, and we'll give you our 2025 draft guide for free. Again, that's code FELLAS over on Underdog. Now let's get you back to the rest of the show. All right, let's keep chugging on these mid-round steals, Ty. We've talked about Matthew Golden, James Conner, and Darnell Mooney thus far. I'm sticking in the same range. I'm only moving 2 picks up the board. Josh Downs, to me, is absolutely a steal here in the middle rounds of your fantasy drafts. And I just kind of want to debunk this whole Colts quarterback room stinks thing quick. Like, when Anthony Richardson can't even complete 50% of his passes last year, like, I'm sorry, literally anybody else you throw in the game is automatically going to be an upgrade from him, right? In the 7 games without Anthony Richardson last year, if you just want proof in the pudding on this one, Josh Downs was running 2.4 yards per route. He drew a target on 33% of his routes. He was averaging 15.5 fantasy points per game, which was good for the wide receiver 17 in those games. I know that was with gunslinger Joe Flacco, but I'm also not going to let y'all forget that Daniel Jones supported the wide receiver 13 in Malik Neighbors and the wide receiver 34 in PPR scam Wan'Dale Robinson in his 10 starts last year. Like, Downs is just a sneaky good weapon for this Colts offense. I do think he's the best wide receiver on this team ahead of Michael Pittman. And even if he only finishes as the wide receiver 33 in points per game again this year, which is what he did last year, like, similar to Darnell Mooney, that's already a steal at the wide receiver 46.
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like I purposely stayed away from your guys, but I looked at James Conner, I looked at Josh Downs, and I said, I'll let Lucas talk about them, because
Those are my
2
guys.
Those are your guys. Those are 2 of my favorite mid-round guys as well. Josh Downs is just a sneaky, under-the-radar good player. The question will be, as the slot receiver here in Indy, how often can he get on the field? That's going to be the question. But the point of, if we're talking slot wide receivers, Jaden Reed goes as 3 spots ahead and 3 spots in rankings. Same question for him, but people have more confidence. I know it's the Packers offense compared to the Colts, but what Josh Downs has the possibility of is being the top target getter in this Colts offense. I don't think Jaden Reed has that kind of path to
Right.
In that offense. So for Josh Downs, he is I want to say he's the latest wide receiver 1 on a team in drafts right now in Underdog.
Depends on who you want to count, but yes, if you're counting Josh Downs as the wide receiver 1, he technically goes after Diggs, who would be considered the wide receiver 1.
I feel like, again, we're I don't want to say we're penalizing him and Michael Pittman and the other Colts weapons, but we do need to kind of put into context that, like, yes, things can be really bad with Richardson, but they were still able to give us some production. And if we get Daniel Jones, we could see Josh Downs as a nice, like, flex start in majority of the weeks then.
Yeah, I mean, Hayden Winks pointed this out when he and Josh Norris talked about Josh Downs. They did a ADP comparison episode, and the comparison was Josh Downs and Cooper Kupp. But the thing that Hayden said, there's 2 options with Anthony Richardson this year. He either gets better or he gets benched. Because if he gets worse, there's no room for Anthony Richardson to get worse without getting benched. So either Anthony Richardson improves, which, hey, you know what? There's probably a benefit to Josh Downs, or he gets benched for Daniel Jones, which is probably a benefit for for Josh Downs here, right? And just to highlight the phenomenal work of Matthew Harmon, who we highlight very frequently on this show. The reception perception profile for Josh Downs is wonderful. 76.7 success rate versus man coverage last year. That's 90th percentile, 92nd percentile success rate against zone, and then a 77% success rate against press coverage as well. And he ends with the note of in his tweet, Josh Downs, without question, should be considered one of the best young wide receivers in the NFL. I get he isn't a good player on a good team, but you know what? Can Josh Downs be a good player on an improving team? And that's enough of a bet for me. Yeah, I think that's where I land on Josh Downs, and I'm willing to take that shot at this price tag this year for sure. Let's keep it moving, Ty. We're done with the running backs and wide receivers. We're moving on to the tight end position now. You're more bullish on Evan Engram than I expected this year.
Very much. Just like how some people are bullish on Tucker Kraft, I'm bullish on Evan
Gosh,
Engram.
I'm so sick of being the Tucker Kraft guy already. It was a shocking projections episode. I don't know what's more shocking than opening up my projections and seeing Tucker Kraft at the tight end 5. I think I have made changes on this already and have brought Tucker Kraft down in my rankings. No, I have not, but he will be coming down. Because that almost wasn't shocking. That was almost like haunting to see him that high in my rankings. Anyways, I Tucker Kraft somehow came out as my tight end 5. If you haven't watched that episode, please go do that. It's a phenomenal episode. Some of the comments have said one of the funniest episodes we've ever dropped, but you have Engram as your tight end 5. Sorry.
Yes, I've got Engram as my tight end 5. And really, on the surface, there's a wide open opportunity to be the number 2 guy in this offense. And getting the number 2 guy in this up and coming Denver offense right now, an underdog in the late 9th round. I mean, are you kidding me? He's straight according to ADP or the underdog rankings here. His projections are right around where these receivers and running backs are going. He's probably got higher upside than those guys. Or at least the potential to finish better than where most of these guys will ultimately end up. Things will look different and be different than it was in Jacksonville, right? When he was in Jacksonville, he was kind of the PPR cheat code. He was bottom 10 in ADOT of all tight ends with 40 or more targets every year while in Jacksonville. And his average, if I'm not mistaken, because I did the math on it earlier, it was around 5.6. So super close to the line of scrimmage, easy way to get some targets and some catches. Now going to Denver, he's going to be used more downfield because that's typically what Sean Payton wants with his tight ends. So while being used more downfield may hurt the easy target production or easy reception production that he was getting in Jacksonville, again, which is why he finished as high as the 10 and 4 points per game. He had stretches where he's a top 3 guy. There's still a chance that he gets fed while being the number 2 guy in this offense while getting bigger plays downfield. I love the price tag on Evan Engram for how he has as much upside as any tight ends outside of the top 3, and he goes substantially later than the Stan Laportas and TJ Hawkinsons of the world.
Yeah, he only goes 5 picks earlier in your home leagues as well, compared to on Underdog right now, where he goes at 108 in your home league. Sorry, 6 picks. He goes at 102. I think Sean Payton made this pretty easy for us this offseason, honestly. Right away at the start of the offseason, what did he say? We need to get better at tight end. We need to get better at running back. We need to get better along the defensive line. Okay, cool. So what did they do? They went out and they signed Evan Engram. They got better at tight end. They're going to go ahead and make sure Evan Engram is utilized this year because, look, as much as you and I like Pat Bryant coming out, I think Evan Engram is more likely to get the easy underneath stuff from Bo Nix this year rather than Pat Bryant, who I read somewhere. I really need to find it. I thought I read somewhere that he was like lining up to play more of a power slot this year, which I would find super fascinating. But Evan Engram, regardless, is going to get a lot of the easy underneath stuff from Bo Nix this year. I've also seen people point out that the Broncos were dead last in tight end utilization last year. You want to take a guess why they were dead last in tight end utilization last year, Ty?
Because their tight end room was Adam Troutman and Lucas Kroll.
Like, why would you ever want to use them? Why would you use those two in your offense? Right? So to me, when people look, it's like, man, well, Sean Payton, didn't use the tight ends much last year compared to what we were used to during his time with the New Orleans Saints. To me, that's silly. We've seen Sean Payton utilize elite tight ends before. That's not to call Evan Engram an elite tight end, but when he says we need to go get better at tight end, they go out and get the best free agent tight end available who has proven to be useful in the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. 2 plus 2 can equal 4 sometimes. We just don't need to make this more difficult. I get why people are maybe drafting him as a tight end 8. I have him ranked as my tight end 8 currently, but yeah, I definitely think there's top 5 upside here for Evan Engram for how tight that tier of tight ends is after George Kittle.
Mm-hmm.
I think some people would want to say there's another tier break with Sam Laporta and TJ Hawkinson. I guess I'm just not 100% sold on that yet.
Nope, I'm not either. I think what ultimately sells me on Evan Engram, though, going to Denver, like you kind of brought up, Sean Payton he's not the type to just bring somebody in just for the sake of bringing somebody in. Like, there's a reason why they went for Evan Engram and paid him because Sean Payton wanted Evan Engram here. Tight ends in Sean Payton's offense with 50 plus targets. We're talking about Jimmy Graham. Hello. Yep. Hello. Not saying we're not going to score as much as Jimmy Graham. Heck of a player. Benjamin Watson. Remember him?
Oh gosh. Heck of a player.
Heck of a player. You ready for this one though? Here's where we're going to be some guys naming some dudes. Kobe Fleener.
Heck of a player, dude.
Heck of a player. Jared Cook.
Oh yeah. Jared Cook. Shout out.
Yeah. Their combined ADOT average was 10 yards. Okay. So Evan Engram has the potential, like you said, to be the kind of underneath guy in certain situations. He can also be the vertical or downfield guy for some bigger plays. Like I think there's a lot of room for Evan Engram to really, come through and best where he's going right now. It's the tight end 8 and push to be a top 5 guy. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's got the same upside as the top 3 guys, but if you are looking for somebody after those 3, Evan Engram, really, really good bet.
Yeah, just as good of a bet as I think anybody going between the tight end 4 to 5 to the tight end 12 right now. And Evan Engram is going in the latter part of that. Before we get to this final player, I mentioned at the top of the episode, you noticed if you're watching over on YouTube, we have the projections below each of these players' names over on YouTube. Those all come straight out of our 2025 Fantasy Football Fellas draft guide. That is linked in the pinned comment and in the description down below. You get our full statted out projections on 292 players, projections from me, projections from Ty, projections from Cameron, and we have full individual team pages as well, highlighting last year's success, highlighting offensive tendencies last year, different stats, our rankings for each team, and we still have more that's coming down the road as well. So if you want that, check out the link in the pinned comment or the description down below. Last player, Ty, Justin Fields. And he's kind of like at the end of these mid rounds here, right? Going as 101 right now. Quarterback 10 on underdog, but quarterback 14 in your home leagues. And it feels like every year we find a way to suppress the ADP of one of these mobile quarterbacks with top 7 upside. Like, to me, this year, it's Justin Fields. Like, Jaden Daniels last year was going right around like the quarterback 11 to 12 range. It's right in the range Justin Fields is going this year. And I know many out there love to hate Justin Fields, but when you factor in this otherworldly rushing upside he possesses, like, you're going to strike fantasy gold here. Since 2021, every quarterback that's topped 130 rush attempts in the season has finished as a top 6 quarterback in fantasy points per game. Justin Fields in his 6 starts last year was a quarterback 6 overall, on pace for 155 rush attempts last year. And that 130 number that I mentioned, like, really isn't that unfathomable. It's one thing to like stretch out a player's averages from the year prior, but he had 124 attempts in 13 games in 2023. He had 160 attempts in 15 games in 2022. Like, I'm not just going to sit here and tell you that Fields is going to succeed as a passer. I think that would probably be a lie, but I just don't get how he can keep making the same mistake time after time after time again on these mobile quarterbacks who have top 7 upside. I don't want to say on lock, but literally right within their back pocket.
Justin Fields, you want to take a guess what percentage of his rushing attempts were scrambles?
A stupid high percentage.
42%.
Oh.
42%. So to think that all of a sudden with the Jets, the rushing ability or the designed rushing touches, I'll call them, go away, works against Justin Fields' skill set, but he still possesses that ability to escape and run. That is Justin Fields' game. The big question is, well, what will passing touchdowns look like?
I don't care. That's my
The
answer.
thing. That's the thing.
What do you have him projected for? Let's give the people a sneak peek at the draft guide. I have him for 18 passing touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Still my quarterback.
I have him for 21 passing touchdowns, 10 interceptions.
It's nothing impressive. Justin Fields isn't going to blow you away with his passing ability. It's the rushing upside. The rushing upside is the floor. The passing upside is what's your ceiling with Justin Fields. That's what, again, to use another Josh Norris analogy, that's what you're getting here with Justin Fields. It just boggles my mind how we can just make the same mistake, and especially in your home leagues. Justin Fields at quarterback 14. Sorry, I'm not taking a quarterback until Dak Prescott or Justin Fields this year. There's no way you can convince me to, unless if it's one of the big four.
I think we've also seen quarterbacks like Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson to a certain extent, where they do get a substantial rushing volume and they put up yards, but they don't really score a whole lot. Justin Fields is kind of the opposite. I don't want to say he doesn't run for yards because mobile quarterbacks just put up rushing yards like no tomorrow. Fields is big enough that he can find the end zone, that when they get into the red zone, he can be the guy to score.
He might be the red zone option ahead of Breece Hall, which is kind of scary to say for Breece Hall's value.
Hey, put some respect on Braylon Allen here. Come on now.
Are we in shotgun or I formation?
We're going triple read option. First to Breece, first to Braylon Allen, and then it's Justin Fields right down the middle. Again, what Fields possesses as a rushing quarterback is ultimately what's the difference. Why we would prefer, I'm just going to say why I would prefer Justin Fields over Kyler Murray. It's because Justin Fields can get in the end zone. And if they're going to be relatively, I don't want to say the exact same, but if the passing volume is going to be low for both of them, I'm going to offer the rushing touchdowns that Justin Fields gives me rather than the yards that Kyler Murray can give me.
Yeah, and just to contextualize that, on his 160 attempts in 2022, he did find the end zone 8 times, rushed for 1,100 yards. Even last year, right, in his 6 starts with Pittsburgh, 5 rushing touchdowns in 6 games. So yeah, this dude can easily find the end zone anywhere between 6 to 8 times this year, and that's going to be such a needed boost at the quarterback position when you're looking to get an advantage over your league mates in that regard in the middle rounds of your drafts. We'll put a pin in it there, Ty. Anything you want to add before we sign off? Actually, no, false. Let me ask you this. Have you had a chance to meditate on soup and ravioli?
I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of on the ravioli train here.
Okay. But it's not that everything is a ravioli.
Right.
There are soups in the world. But everything within the world is either a soup or a ravioli.
And a hot dog, ladies and gentlemen, is a sandwich.
It is a sandwich. It's also a soup.
It's also a soup? I feel like I'm a part of a game that I don't fully understand, and I don't like it.
I will say, one of our loyal listeners, Elliot Phelan, will appreciate that I have now made this a part of your life. We used to debate this all the time in college. I now do it with my students as well. And I literally got a text from one of my students the other day. She goes, Lucas, I hope your summer's been going well. I literally texted to let you know that I realized a Pop-Tart is a ravioli, and I am so happy. And I'm like, me too.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. All right. If you want to find us for other fantasy football insights and not super ravioli discussion, you can follow us on our other socials as well. FFL is on Twitter. The FFL is on Instagram. Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook and TikTok. Hey, if you're just a YouTube person through and through, Fantasy Football Fellas shorts as well, like the pants I'm currently wearing. I guess that's not true because shorts are not pants, according to our viewers. But I digress.
Oh, fascinating.
It's a debate for next week. Look, we'll be back next week with some of our favorite picks at the running back position, some of our favorite picks at the wide receiver position, and not just some of our favorite picks, but players who we think possess that level of like insane upside that you just can't miss out on this year. So make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell for those episodes as soon as they drop next week. I'm at Lucas Wenzel on X, Tyler _Plath for Ty. Stay safe, stay healthy, all. We'll see you next week. Deuces.
Deuces.